In this clip, we are going to have a look at income elasticity of demand and cross-elasticity of demand. Let's start with income elasticity. The income elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness of the quantity demanded to changes in consumers' income. When income changes, it will have an effect on the demand for a good or service. Note that the letter Y is used to denote income. Income elasticity of demand is a ratio of the percentage change in the quantity demanded and the percentage change in consumers' income. This can be expressed in a short form as follows. The coefficient value could be positive or negative. This tells us the type of good that we are dealing with. Goods with a positive income elasticity of demand are called normal goods because as income increases, the quantity demanded increases. By the same token, a decrease in income would lead to a decrease in the quantity demanded. Note that the change in income and quantity demanded is in the same direction, and this is why the elasticity coefficient will be positive. Normal goods can be classified into two groups. Essential goods, where the coefficient value will be positive but a value less than 1. So let's write that down. So essential goods, so we're looking at normal goods, can be essential goods, also known as necessities. So the coefficient value is positive but less than 1. Normal goods could also be luxuries, where the coefficient value is positive but greater than 1. Goods with a negative income elasticity of demand are called inferior goods. As income increases, the quantity demanded decreases, and by the same token, if income decreases, the quantity demanded increases. Note that the change in income and quantity demanded is in opposite directions. Let's have a look at some examples. We assume here that the consumers have had a 10% increase in income. Let's take a look at the case of soap. So the increase in income is 10%, and we'll assume here that there is an increase in the quantity demanded of soap of 3%. So the income elasticity coefficient would be equal to the percentage change in quantity divided by the percentage change in income, and that will give us plus 3 over plus 10, which of course gives us a value of plus 0,3. Of course, it's customary to leave out the plus sign. If there's no sign in front of a number, it is assumed to be positive. Let's take a look at the case of hamburgers. So we've got a 10% increase in income. In response to that, consumers buy 15% more hamburgers. So the income elasticity coefficient, the percentage change in the quantity in response to the percentage change in income, we would have, in this case, plus 15 divided by plus 10, which gives us a value of plus 1,5. Now what you will notice in this case is that for both of these goods, the coefficient value is positive. That tells us that they must be normal goods. In the case of soap, the coefficient value is positive, but it is less than 1, so we know that this is a necessity, also known as an essential good. In the case of hamburgers, we found that the coefficient value is positive, but the coefficient value is greater than 1, which infers that it is a luxury. Let's take a look now at the case of candles. We have a 10% increase in income. In response to that, we have a 28% decrease in the quantity demanded. The coefficient value is the percentage change in quantity divided by the percentage change in income. So in this case we have minus 28 divided by plus 10. A negative divided by a positive will give us a negative value. So we have minus 2,8. So because the coefficient value is negative, we know that this is an inferior good. Note that the term inferior does not tell us anything about the quality of the good. It's just a short way for, in the language of economics, to explain the consumer behavior in response to a change in income. When we say it's an inferior good, we know that consumers are buying less of the good due to the fact that they have got an increase in income. Note that in a test or exam, the question might say something like this: the income elasticity of demand for good X is plus 1,2. So from this information, you would need to identify whether it is a normal good or an inferior good, whether it is an essential good or a luxury. Now let's take a look at cross-elasticity of demand. The cross-elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness of the quantity demanded of a particular good to changes in the price of a related good. So the related goods could be substitutes or complements. The cross-elasticity coefficient can be expressed in short form as follows. So it's the percentage change in the quantity demanded of product A, in other words, the one that we are focusing on, in response to a percentage change in the price of a related product, which we will call product B. Now, the sign of the coefficient is important. If the answer is negative, then we are dealing with goods that are complements to each other, such as CDs and CD players. The movements in price and quantity are in opposite directions, which will give a negative answer. If the coefficient has a positive value, the goods are substitutes to each other. Note that the movements in price and quantity are in the same direction, which will give a positive answer. Let's have a look at some examples. Let's look at the case of margarine and butter. So, if the price of butter increases by 10%, the quantity demanded of butter would decrease. That's in keeping with the law of demand. So all those people who were buying butter before but are not buying it now because it's more expensive will switch to something that is relatively cheaper. That item that is relatively cheaper then is margarine. So in response to the 10% increase in the price of butter, we might find that there's an increase in the demand for margarine of, let's say, 12%. So calculating the cross-elasticity coefficient, we would have the following. The cross-elasticity coefficient is equal to the percentage change in the quantity of A divided by the percentage change in the price of B. So in this case we have plus 12 divided by plus 10, which gives us a value of plus 1, 2. So remember that it's customary, if a number is positive, to leave out the plus sign in front of it. If there's no sign in front of the number, it is assumed to be positive anyway. Let's have a look at the case of cars and tires, which are very obviously complements. So in response to the change in the price of motor cars, so the price of motor cars has increased by 10%. So that would lead to a decrease in the quantity demanded of motor cars. Now, everybody knows that every motor car is sold with 5 tires. So 4 which are actually mounted on axles, and of course 1 which is in the boot as the spare. So as one drives, one uses up your tire. Okay, it's a semi-durable good. So in response to the increase in the price of cars, there would, over a period of time, be a decrease in the quantity demanded of cars. That would lead to a decrease in the demand for tires. So the demand for tires might decrease by, let's say, 6%. So calculating our cross-elasticity coefficient, we now have the following. The percentage change in the quantity of A divided by the percentage change in the price of B. So in this case we have minus 6 divided by plus 10, and the result of that, a negative divided by a positive, means that we have a negative answer, in this case negative 0,6. So in the case of butter and margarine, our coefficient value is positive, so that means that these goods must be substitutes. And in the case of tires and motor cars, the result was negative, so we know that these goods must be complements. Lastly, it's important to note that in a test or exam, the question may read something like this. If the cross-elasticity between goods X and Y is minus 1,3, how are they related? So you would need to know that because the coefficient value is negative, they are complements.